Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Welcome to the show, Richard. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very glad to be here and speak with you.
We were just chatting earlier about how I've interviewed basically all your good buddies around Paris and France.
A few of them, absolutely, yeah.
I'm very happy to finally have you on the show. I heard a lot about you from Jason Stone King. He was raving about you.
Well, that's very nice, yeah.
I just want to go back to the beginning about where you're from and what brought you to France.
I'm from New York City, and I started coming to Paris in the early 80s. 1984 was the first time I came here. By the way, I turned 70 this year, and going through your archives, I think I may be the oldest person that you've interviewed.
You know, I'm not sure, but you could be. You could be. I'm not. Yeah. You know, that's a good question.
I'm a senior interviewee in any case, I think.
I love it.
The early 80s in Paris was an extremely exciting time. I actually didn't plan on coming to Paris. I was on my way to Rome and came through Paris because my sister was here and fell in love with it and just, had a great time. Met my future wife and partner, Marie, and then ended up traveling down to Rome, spending 4 months there and writing and calling to people in Paris a lot, and then ended up coming back here and staying for a year. Then returned to New York, downtown New York, Lower East Side, 80s, crack, AIDS, the whole scene, and with my future wife and partner Marie, and we spent 8 years in New York, very very happy, profitable years, and then decided to make the jump to Paris, where we'd been coming frequently. And we'd been traveling a lot back and forth between New York and France, but decided to make the move and come to Paris. So that was in 1990.
Wow. I mean, I bet you've seen so many changes between New York and Paris.
Oh, man, it is a different world. Absolutely. There's no question about it.
What are some of the biggest things that have changed in Paris, like in the last 40 years?
It's been 40 years. Unbelievable, but true. Well, when I first started coming here, Paris was sort of depressed. It was a very bad time economically, particularly for young people. Mitterrand was president. The franc was basically worthless. We got the equivalent of like 2.5 euros for every dollar. So for an American, it was very cheap. But for the French kids, artists, everybody, life was tough. It was hard. There wasn't a lot of work. And we're so used to coming from New York. We're so used to sort of, the sort of insouciance and this nonchalant approach to life. Always cheap rent, always work, no problems. In those areas. So it was an eye opener to come here and find that wow, people, life can be hard. However, that said, life in Paris has always been good for people without money. In fact, it's a good place to be poor.
Yeah, I mean, poor artists have been coming here for centuries, right? So,
Exactly, yeah, and the Great Depression. Obviously, a lot of Americans came over here and found that they could live very well, relatively speaking.
so what was it that really drew you into Paris in those starting years? Because you said you were going to Italy, so why Paris?
Well, love first of all. I mean, that was a big part of it. My meeting my future wife. Apart from that, I just liked the energy. I liked the freedom of it. I liked the fact that because it was relatively depressed economically at that time, it was sort of under the radar. Most of my friends in New York, when I told them I was going to Paris, they were like, "Oh man, Paris it's like an extension of Père Lachaise. It's a terrible place to be." It was New York, Rome. They were like the sister cities, and which is part of the reason why I wanted to go to Rome at the time. But I like the freedom of being here without without all the hype and without all of the pretension. And it was long before the Disneyfication of Paris, so that was all good. It felt like it was ours.
That's fascinating because I live in Montmartre and I've met a few people that, their families are from this area and they're like, yeah, 30, 40 years ago, you did not want to be hanging around like Abbas. And now it's like such a
Mm.
trendy neighborhood. So it's crazy how fast that's all changed.
It has changed very fast. The areas in Paris that are super gentrified now, like the Upper Marais, that was there was nothing there. I mean, it was completely empty. I'm not sure it was dangerous. With my wife, we bought a small loft on in the 11th near Rue Oberkampf, and the Oberkampf subway was a dealer's platform. There were twice a day, morning and late afternoon, there were 100 or so junkies on the quay in the metro, buying their dope. The building that we bought our place in was a squat, at least partially a squat, and there were beat up sofas down in the courtyard and needles and spoons with holes in them and lemon rinds and the whole thing, and people here, when they knew we were interested in it, were particularly me. People were like, "Are you crazy? That's just insane. You don't want to buy that. Dangerous." And having seen what happened in New York, I was like, I don't know. I think this looks pretty good.
You saw the future.
And even in the 80s in New York, I mean, people I'd seen had a lot of my friends sort of locked out of the city by the prices of rent and just the cost of housing and living. They couldn't afford it. So yeah, but buying a cheap corner in a squat seemed like a pretty good idea at the time.
Yeah, it worked out well for you. And you,
No regrets.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And you
Mhm.
recently, after 40 years, have moved out to the French countryside. So
That's right.
what inspired that?
Well, COVID largely was the short answer to that question. But I knew this area. A particularly spectacular house was for sale for an extremely reasonable price, and we could afford it. And Paris had closed down, so we made the jump.
I love that because a lot of people during
Mm.
COVID totally changed their lives. And a lot of people I feel like reconnected to nature too,
Mm.
because they were like, oh, I'm stuck in my house. I just
Yeah,
need
totally.
to be in
Yeah,
the grass
absolutely. Yeah.
more.
Well, the first confinement in Paris was okay. I mean, for me anyway. Our daughter came and stayed with us because she was living alone, and we passed a couple of months together, and it was pretty nice. And the Paris was it was the weather was great. We had a dog, so I could walk the dog, and so I had permission to be wandering around. It was gorgeous. I mean, there was nobody, no cars, and you could hear the birds and high heels clicking on the sidewalks, and it was nice. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But after the first confinement, no, that was enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. It
Mm-hmm.
was the same for us. We
Mm-hmm.
had a dog, and like our neighbors would ask to borrow our dog so they could
Borrow the
go
dog, right? Yeah,
out.
of course.
Like, give us your pass.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
so talk
Mm.
a little bit about your recent work. I know you've been incorporating nature a lot into your work.
I have been. I have a nice studio here, which has been a privilege and a great thing for me. It's opened up a lot of horizons that were, that I hadn't really been available to me before. It's a nice life to be out in the country, just screwing around in the studio, having fun, and messing around with materials, and that's all been good. There's Jason. We talked about Jason. He and Leslie McAllister, who you've also interviewed, came down here about a year and a half ago and filmed my life and my work here, and recently came up with a documentary about it, which is terrific. And they did a great job, and very pleased about it. We screened it a couple of times, and that's been a great experience. Sharing a great way to share with a bigger public what's going on here. So that's been good.
Yeah, it's completely different than, some of the things you were doing when you were living here. And I know that you're a poet, you're a filmmaker, you're a novelist. So talk a little bit about like what your favorite medium is and how that's changed since living in the city.
Well, poetry is my first love, I guess. I mean, and it's been my main thing from the beginning. And I was writing a lot of poetry in New York and working a lot with artists when I lived in New York. But my poetry is pretty abstract and not so easy to understand or to get a feeling for, even if you're a native English speaker. And here in France, it was pretty clearly obvious that there's, just no way that was going to ever get any kind of traction here. Even with the French artists, it was a kind of a funny contradictory thing, because people loved, when you say you're a poet, people were very receptive to that. They thought it was great, an American poet in Paris. It's wonderful. But on the other hand, they couldn't really understand anything that I was writing. So I started making visual objects to try to communicate some of my ideas and feelings and dilemmas, whatever, and that went well. I started having shows, and people responded well to that, and so it became a kind of a good sideline, if you will, maybe. Kept me interested, kept me busy, got me connections with people, and so I kept at it.
And so how long have you been a full-time artist?
Well, it depends what you mean by full time. I guess maybe full time artist since about 2015, maybe sometime around there.
That's great, because I know so many of our listeners and guests are dreaming of doing, these creative pursuits full time, and it always feels kind of impossible. But I feel like France is more welcoming to all of that.
I think so. I mean, France has been very good to me, and I've been, it's given me a lot, and I'm, very very pleased about being here for many reasons, but certainly being able to work and to pursue my passions and my artistic goals is one of the top reasons.
And how would you define poetry in your own words?
That's really an interesting question, because in the documentary that I just mentioned that Jason and Leslie came down here to make, I say literally, please don't ask me to define poetry.
That's why I'm asking you now. I got a sneak peek of that video.
Oh, you did? Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, poetry is. I think that I've come around to feeling that it's a sort of it's a normative thing, so that it exists, and it can exist in many forms, and one of the forms that it can take is linguistic. It can be language, but it's a condition. I've written poems about being on planet poetry. Where kind of everything is poetry.
I love that. Everything is
Mm,
poetry. That's beautiful.
mm.
And what or who inspires your work the most at this time in your life?
Right now.
Yeah, right now.
Um, I- who inspires me? Well, there are lots of people who inspire me. In terms of the work that they're doing, I'm not really so sure. Occasionally, I get knocked out by something, really that I think is really good or that moves me or I feel very passionate about. But people's lives inspire me the most now. The way they're living, how they're living, how they're dealing with their existence on this crazy planet. That's where most of my inspiration comes from, I think.
And where do you believe creativity comes from? I mean, many people believe that like they're just the vessel that something's communicating through, or it comes from, your childhood trauma or whatever. Where do you think it comes from?
Well, I have absolutely no idea, to be honest, Crystal. But I go back and forth between feeling like all I have to do is get out of the way, and whatever's going to happen will happen, and that it is something that's coming through me, or to feeling like just playing around with any kind of materials that eventually start to take on a life of their own and make a give me a problem to solve, or give me something interesting to think about, or a goal to pursue. So yeah, all of that.
And how do you feel when you're in your flow states when you're doing your work?
Good.
Good. Hard stop.
Yeah, no, I mean that's where we like to be, right? It's to have be working, be in a flow state, as you say. It's what most people think of as process, I think.
And why do you feel art is important in today's world?
Oh, for so many reasons. It's just I don't I, I don't know where I fall on the spectrum of can it really change things? Can it make a difference? But I think that I come down positively on that. I mean, certainly personally for me, it's made a huge difference. But it's important to pursue your passions, to have make your interests available to people, to try to bring it alive, to tend your garden. So
Yeah, I like that, to tend your garden, to connect.
mm.
That's very important. I mean, you're helping yourself, but you're also helping others through work. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, one hopes, right? Of course, yeah.
Yeah, some people at least. And talk a little bit about your creative resources. So where do you go to find, resources to get your creativity flowing, to get re-inspired?
Um, God, it's my senses, maybe some kind of sensuality, books, intellectual pursuits, movies, pretty much. I mean, it comes from everywhere.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many opportunities to be inspired. You just have to, step out, and especially with the online world too. I mean, there's so many
Mm.
ways to connect even more. How do you feel that social media has affected the artistic community? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing?
I mean, social media didn't exist when I started making art. It wasn't, just the internet, mid 1995 maybe started, getting interested in the internet. Uh, uh, but for me, it's always been somewhat mysterious, and I feel both interested in a lot of things that are going on the internet, and at the same time sort of distant from it. Very often very curious about people, and when they put things online, how much of themselves they're revealing or not revealing, and what kind of access you really have to their world, and how those things get shared. for personal reasons, the internet is sort of almost critical to being out here in the country, because it's that sense of being connected no matter where you are is very important. For in personal terms, for family and for friends, but also in artistic terms. I run into things on the internet that I find myself excited about all the time.
And what are your feelings on AI?
I don't zero actually.
Yes.
I have no feelings about it for the moment. I mean, I suppose that it's a thing. I've seen a couple of things that alarmed me, surprised me. Very rarely something that delights me, but I don't know. I don't know where we're going with it. I don't know what's going to happen with it. Frankly, no idea.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling that way. It's like this Wild West right now. So we're all just going with the flow and seeing how it evolves.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything that like that totally grabbed me. That I know of anyway. I mean, I suppose there could be a lot of AI out there that you don't even know is AI, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Search engines and things like that. And how would you define creativity in your own words?
Creativity is a desire to share some experience with people, some part of yourself, to make some part of yourself available in ways that might be helpful to others, give them new ways of looking at the world, being in the world, of seeing things.
I like that. And what's the best advice you've ever been given?
Best advice I've ever been given? I think probably the best advice I've ever been given came to me from my brother, who died about 5 years ago of ALS. And he said, "Don't sweat the little stuff."
I think that's great advice, especially.
And then he said, "And it's all little stuff."
Yes, I love that. It's so true, though. We're always just going in these crazy mental circles, sweating everything. And talk a little bit about the work, how it's evolved. I mean, you've been an artist for a very long time now. You've lived in the city, you've lived in New York, you live in the countryside. Like, how has your work changed and evolved?
Well, I've been working in a lot of different mediums, so every medium has its own challenges, so I mean, to use film as an example, I mean, I tend to just react to things around me impulsively, and I started making films in 2000, and between 2000 and 2015, I made 20 films. About.
Wow.
Depends on some of them. A few things that I've made are very short, like 30 seconds. So I'm not really including them. But no, I made a lot of films and I spent 15 years in either pre-production or production or post-production, and that was a consuming activity, to say the least. And I was pretty happy to let it go after 15 years, because exhausting and very rewarding at the same time, and exciting, and brought me a lot of different connections and stuff. But there was interesting also, something like making films, specifically in Paris, since this is a Paris podcast. It was exciting to me to discover that because of the French unemployment benefits, there were lots and lots of creative people who were. I used to say they were working for me for free. But in fact, they were being paid by the government. They were on their unemployment benefits, and so finding actors or technicians was always pretty easy. I was, if you had a script and you had some energy and you had a very minimal or production budgets, and even sometimes no production budget, people were very happy to come and give their time and their energy and do the work. It was a amazing thing to me that you come up with a script, you put together a small team, and then the next thing you know, there are 15, 20 people around busy working on a project together. So that was something that Paris gave me that certainly New York never did, or never even came close to giving me.
Yeah, I feel like they're always filming something here, especially living up in Montmartre. You always see them filming something, and it is true. I mean, because you're taking money out of the equation, it's more comfortable for people to be artists because it's like I can still pay my rent and I can still have some fun creating.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And people, they really, most of the French people that I've worked with, they love what they do, and they're very passionate about it, very technically capable and ready to work. The only thing about making films on a very low budget is that it's hard to hold a team together for a long period of time. You have to be pretty organized because to keep however many people it is, let's say 10 people, working and focused for a week is doable. But otherwise, if somebody gets a paying job, they go, and of course they should. They have to go make some money. But that was a very, very rewarding experience to see how passionate people were about what they do.
What were some of the other big differences you've noticed over the years between working as an artist in the States versus working as an artist in France?
I would say that generally the French, they have more respect for artists in the sense that they don't really care if you're showing with Gagosian or whatever. If you're working and happy with what you're doing, then people like that, and that's not always so true in the States. I think particularly in New York, it was more competitive, maybe.
Yeah, definitely that more. Like, who do you know? How much are you making? Situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of just for the work itself.
Yeah, pretty much.
And are there any future projects you want to share with us?
I'd love to say that I have a future project. I've been sort of tinkering with a lot of stuff, and I have. I've written two novels. One, a New York novel about New York, downtown New York in the late '70s and early '80s, and then I wrote a Paris novel. And so that's something that interests me. I like fiction. I like novel writing, and since we moved here, I've been trying to figure out how to do something novelistic with the experience of moving to the south of France, and haven't really come up with anything very satisfactory yet.
Yet is the key word.
Yeah. Well, I've been sort of, I got some big sheets of paper that are like, I don't know, a meter and a half by a meter and a half, and started writing on them and hanging them up and putting ideas out and I'm thinking of setting it in the near future, like maybe 2050, and trying to figure out what the world here in France might look like in 2050, and what might be going on politically or socially, and integrating it with the knowledge I now have of this area in France. And then I've got these, I had like maybe 10 of these big sheets covered with my scribblings and my drawings and my ideas. And then I thought, it just looked like a big mess. So I thought, what, maybe I'll just it'll just be these pieces of paper. Maybe that's just it.
I love that. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Is mess making.
Yeah, well, hang them on the wall and let me make that the novel.
And there's the art.
Yeah. Well, I had a similar experience because I've been journal writing since I got here, and filled, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 journals with ideas about the house, the area, and lots of stuff. And originally, when I started writing in the journals, I thought that was material, like this material that I'm thinking about for a novel, that I would go back and mine. I would go back to the journals and figure out how to turn them into fiction somehow. And then I just decided no, that's not really what I want to do. The journals are just there. They're just the journals. That's what they are.
Yeah, the journals, I think everyone talks about this, how journaling is so important and how it changes our mindset and other creative pursuits. So yeah, it's leave the journals as the journals, right?
Yeah, kind of. Exactly.
Just like a brain dump.
The brain dump.
Brain dump. And where can people check out your work, buy your books, and follow along on your adventures?
Well, most of what I've done, except for some very recent stuff, is on my website, which is www.afterart.com, which I started in 1999, perhaps. And I took the trademark After Art and took the website name. Comes from Arturo Danto. He was an art critic at Columbia University in New York, for a very important art critic in the 80s at least. And I don't know if people are still reading him, but he had a theory that what we think of in the West as art ended in 1962 when Andy Warhol showed his Brillo boxes.
He said art ended at that time.
He said art. That's the day that show opened was the day that art died.
Wow.
That what we think of as art died.
Yeah, turned it upside down.
Right. So so I took the name After Art.
I like that. It's a great name. Good name. We will share all of that in the show notes. And thank you so much, Richard, for sharing your story with us today.
My great pleasure. Thank you for your great work. It's gratifying to see that people still want to come to Paris, and that they can swing it. It's wonderful, because one of the big worries, I guess, that one might have about Paris is that it would get so expensive that it would just sort of cut off its own oxygen, because artists couldn't afford to move here anymore. It'd be just too complicated, too difficult, and for a long time many of the artists that I knew were moving out, mostly going to Berlin, because Berlin was cheap.
Yeah.
Particularly the east part, but I'm delighted and pleased and gratified to listen to your podcast and see that there are so many people who still want to be here, who are bringing their energy and their vision and their creative talents to one of my favorite cities.
Yeah, I think it's many people's favorite city, and it's very much a creative hub and almost like a dream. I say, instead of the American dream, this is my American dream, is coming here and doing something creative. So it's definitely still very much so that, and we know that from all the people that are still coming here and that I've talked to over the years. So it is nice to know that that has not changed.
Yep, I agree.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.